Hello, boys and girls, and a warm welcome along to today's United Kingdom talk. Now, we're at somewhere extreme. I wouldn't say posh. What word would you say?
Palatial.
Palatial. We are at somewhere very palatial today. I have with me, sitting on the right, those of you that are listening won't see this, of course, but sitting on the right, the Mayor of Lambeth, Christopher.
Indeed.
You're very, very funny about that, aren't you?
I do prefer Christopher.
Why is that?
Yes.
Christopher Wellbelove is your name.
Yes.
What a name. Is that your real surname, or is that made up?
Yeah, no, it's a real surname. It's an Old English name that means a well-loved citizen.
Oh, well, you are. I believe you are.
So.
And it's Christopher.
It's Christopher, indeed.
Now, I've got to tell you, Mum used to call me Christopher. And...
when she was telling you off?
No, most of the time, actually. Always when she was telling me off, Christopher! She'd be calling me like that. So why don't you like Chris? Just no reason for that. It's not your name.
It's a difficult one. I think when I was younger, I used to be called Chris, and then somebody suggested to me, you're getting a little bit older now, Christopher's a kind of like a better name. So I started asking people, my name is actually Christopher, could you call me Christopher? It's actually quite useful if you're on my day job. I do a lot of conference calls, and Chris is quite a common name.
Yes.
So if you have a Christopher, it's a differentiator.
It's got a more mayoral aura. Mayoral aura about it.
Well, since becoming insisting on being called Christopher, I got 2 promotions, got elected as a councillor, and got to be mayor. So maybe if you do the same thing.
I'm just going to say, do you think I should change when Christopher I'll have to have all my jingles remade, though. I've got to tell you, those of you that are listening instead of watching, Chris is dressed in like a really smart, is it lovely, Christopher? Just keep correcting me.
I will.
Christopher's dressed in a rather nice grey suit. It's not an Asda job, that, is it?
No, it's Ted Baker.
Ted Baker suit with this like chains and like a big gold badge. What does that say on there?
This is the badge of office for the London Borough of Lambeth.
Metropolitan, it says on there, Metropolitan Borough of Lambeth.
Yeah, because originally the boroughs were metropolitan boroughs, and then in 1965 they were reorganised and they were called London boroughs.
Yes.
Some changed their names. This badge actually only comes from about 1927, because the previous mayor took the badge home and got burgled, and they took the badge.
Oh, you don't believe that for one moment, do you?
This is a remake where the chains are from the 18th century.
Wow.
And this is for a sheriff of the City of London. It was his chains. He passed it on to his son, who moved to Lambeth, who gave them to the borough in 1900.
It's not gold. Is it brass? Is it?
No. It's
don't tell me that's gold. Is it?
18 karat gold. Yeah.
Oh, what's that worth? Can I just? I don't have any. This is the only bit of gold I got.
Chains.
And now that's it. That was my mum's. Wow. And did they trust you to wear this?
There's normally someone very close by keeping an eye on the chains, not me.
Oh, you didn't say there were cameras in here. I was going to have a couple of souvenirs on the way out. I noticed on the wall there you've got a couple of spades. What are they for?
Yeah, these are for where the mayor goes and plants trees.
Plant trees.
But as I've discovered, and you'll notice they're very clean.
Yes.
Yeah, as mayor, you don't actually plant them. You just go and stand there with the spade.
So are you telling me, when we see the pictures of various councillors and they're standing in these like public places about to plant, that they don't actually do a thing? They hold the spade?
They don't, but I did go on a bulb planting event on Clapham Common the other week, and I kind of broke with tradition and got down and got my hands dirty.
Well, I should hope so too.
Some of the plants.
Get those bulbs in the ground. Indeed. That's what I say. Tell me, what on earth makes you want to be a mayor? I just imagine you having to deal with all sorts of complaints, people coming at you left, right and centre, they want this, they want that. Why would you want to become a mayor?
You get that more actually as councillor. As mayor, you get more of the focus of the positive things that go on in the borough, because very often people are inviting you to an event and it's something that's pleasurable. But as a councillor, and first of all I was elected as a councillor in 2006 for Clapham Town Ward, where the 2 brewers is. So
it's a pub we both work at.
Yeah. So it's the that's the reason I go to the Two Brewers, is because it's in my constituency.
It's your place.
Part of my job to go and check everything is.
I quite like
okay.
I quite like the sound of the events. Do you often get buffets at these? I'm a great fan of a buffet.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do as mayor is not end up bigger as around the waistline at the end of the year as at the start. So it is quite
how
challenging.
Many people say to you, and they say this to me when I start going on about my weight, oh, it's your age. Don't you hate that? Don't you hate that?
For a mayor, of course, I'm actually quite a young mayor. There's only a couple of others who are around my age. But you were asking about people complaining.
Yes.
And as a councillor, yes, you do get a lot of people come, regarding their drains, their rubbish collection and things like that. But that really is your job, to go back, because you're representing them in the council.
Yeah.
I don't work for the council. I'm the people who voted for me, and even the ones who didn't vote for me. I'm their representative of the council.
You're
to
the
go
guy
back
in the
to
middle.
I'm in the middle to go back and say, look, this is your policy. We don't think that's right, and people are coming back and they're complaining about it. So we want these things to change.
So you are not part of the council, so to speak.
I am the elected representative of the people. They represent me. They vote for me to come and represent them in the council.
Okay.
So I don't work for the council. I don't get a salary from the council. Councillors in different boroughs, a different amount. You get an allowance, and that's to pay for, kind of like childcare, or like I use mine because I'm so busy to have a cleaner, for instance, because I'm hardly ever at home.
Oh, I need one of those, Christopher.
It's a life-changing thing.
I'm noticing it, not a speck of dust anywhere, is there?
Yeah, I can't take any gratitude for that.
I have started cleaning my house. And I hate to say it, don't get me wrong, this is not a Kim and Aggie job. There are not piles of rubbish everywhere and this, that and the other. But there's a layer of dust on the skirting boards, and I've started doing that. And I need a cleaner. It
really, because it frees up the time, which means that you can go and do other things. So that's what the allowance is for.
When you say allowance, I said to you, what's one of the attractions of being a mayor? Now, people that don't know, including myself, I'm assuming now, big fat salary, big house. First of all, you don't have to give me the figure if you don't.
Oh, I can.
Okay.
It's public available. You can,
what are you paid?
You can find it.
Yeah.
I'm not paid. I get an allowance. As a mayor, I get £15,000 a year for doing the role of mayor as an allowance. So it's certainly not something you would do.
You won't want it as a career.
Yes, it's not the reason, but it's public service, and that's the thing about becoming a councillor as well. Since becoming a councillor, I work full time for BT. Typically, I'd been getting a promotion every couple of years. Since becoming a councillor, that stopped. Because one of the things that's quite challenging is balancing the whole thing of doing your day job and being a councillor.
I was going to say, how on earth do you still work for BT now?
Yeah. So half an hour ago, I was on a conference call with work. The minute that we finished here, I then go on my next conference call with work. I'll then go to an event this evening, which finishes about 9, and then I'll be doing some more work again.
This is a dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, but
you've got to want to do this.
But I saw it as a huge opportunity, and a lot of mayors are retired.
Right.
But I saw it as a huge opportunity, and I thought for somewhere like Lambeth, they needed to have somebody who was representative of the people in Lambeth, but also because my day job, I've got a lot of expertise in how to use social media, things like video, and how to communicate wide, and computers.
Yeah.
So I've got a Twitter, I've got a blog, and I maintain all those things myself because I wanted to reach out from the normal group of people who the mayor interacts with.
Well, you're better than me. I manage Facebook fine now. The whole Twitter thing, I find a bit. Don't quite understand what all that's about. I have Twitter and I have a few followers. We're not talking hundreds, less than 100. Nevertheless, if I do something like this show, when I do it, I'll put a thing on Twitter. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't sort of follow anyone or anything like that. But you're a bit younger than me. I'm 46.
I'm 41.
41. Okay. Now, when I was at school, there was no computer in the school, not even one.
We had the Apple when I was in senior
and it
school.
had just come in, hadn't it?
Yeah.
But one would assume, like, the mayors that have been before you and are older wouldn't have had a clue
And
at
actually,
all.
it wasn't an Apple computer. It was the Apple was the symbol because it was a BBC.
BBC,
It was the
yes, I remember
computer,
that.
Yeah, and I had my first computer was a Plus 4.
Don't know.
Commodore Plus 4.
Know. My first computer, the Sinclair Spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, there was different
Wonderful.
groups. There was some people who had a Spectrum, and there was other people who had a. But even from that young age,
Yes.
I actually got chucked out of computer studies. I can't remember what for, but
Did you
I
get
really
chucked out of pubs as well?
no, never. But I think the reason, I found computer studies boring because it was all about the math. Where I've gone on and done lots of stuff with computers because I can always see the opportunity that it has, and that's what I've used for the Mayor, in that I've been able to. I think I've got 800 followers on Twitter.
Wow!
And
can I have some of those? I've only got about 89.
The secret is to follow people with a similar interest.
Okay.
And if you follow them, they're more likely to follow you. You can't just go there and just broadcast. The other thing is, on Twitter, I actually do go on and I monitor what's going on. So people message me and I will respond to them via Twitter, where a lot of people seem to think, oh, if I'm just there, people will come, and it doesn't work like that.
Right. Well, you've taught me that today. So 15 grand, not really worth doing it as a job, but as I say, a dedication. Surely you must get a nice big house then. A big house?
I live in an ex-council flat on Notre Dame Estate in Clapham.
Wow. And do the neighbours know what you do?
I think when
is it secret?
No, when the car comes to pick me up to take me.
No,
to
you don't have a big car come round. Oh, that's awful. No, you see, I'd have to say, no, meet me down the road. Don't come outside my house.
No, and but you can. Quite a few of my neighbours have spoken about it, and they're very excited.
Right.
And they actually see, because I think a lot of people have prejudice against people who live on council estates.
Yes,
and actually they're great places. They're great places to live.
I grew up
huge flats. Yeah, I grew up.
I grew up on a council place. First of all in Peckham, Droitwich House, Commercial Way, and then in '69 we moved to Roehampton, and it was a wonderful place to live.
Yeah.
On the Orton estate, it's quite well known. And it was a wonderful place to be brought up. Now I go back there, people say, oh no, you wouldn't like it now. But funnily enough, on last Friday, it was my mum's anniversary. And I thought, after I'd been to the grave and all that, I had a little drive around Roehampton. And this time, the first time in 8 years, I stopped the car right outside my block of flats and I went up the 2 flights of stairs and just stood there. Looks exactly the same to me. Now, why do people say this? And I would say that the area that you cover as Mayor, part of the area, Brixton.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid to walk through here. Now, I've just walked from Brixton Tube Station to here. Wonderful.
Yeah.
All sorts of people, all colours, all ages, all sizes. Really hustle and bustle down there.
Yeah.
I might have a little look in the market on the way back. Wonderful. What would you say to the people that would say, I would never go to Brixton, I'm scared to walk there?
Well, I'm not originally from Lambeth. Originally grew up in South Ruislip in Middlesex.
But this is where you are now, and looking
this is
after
where
the people.
And I moved here, and to be honest, I moved here because it was what was affordable.
Okay, yes.
About 14 years ago, Brixton was really, really cheap. I think my first rent, we had a 3-bedroom flat, and it was like £285.
Did you buy off the council?
No, that was rent. That was renting private rental in Brixton.
Yeah.
And I must admit, when I first came here, it was very much in your face, and of course also on the high street. It's now being done up so that the pavements are wider and things like that, and they've got rid of the railings that made it feel like really closed in and everything.
I noticed some building work going on just over the road from the town hall.
So we're going to have a big square.
There?
We're going to have a big square there. So it's really
not one of those
it.
dreadful pieces of modern art, I hope.
No.
Please tell me there's not going to be a bit of metal hanging there, and they say that's the art.
Well, and something I think we do need to think about is some sort of monument against hate crime, because of course in Lambeth we've had several people that have been murdered within, Jodie Dubowski on Clapham Common is just one example. So I do think they need to think about something like that, but that's a different subject. But you were asking me about, people worried about coming to Brixton.
Yes.
So I come to Brixton. Once you get used to the area, it's a brilliant, as you say, it's incredibly vibrant, but there's also a really strong community here. When you actually live here and you start meeting people, you realise a lot of people are really, really passionate about the area.
It's wonderful down in that. I mean, there's everything down there.
There's also I was here when with the drugs, with the smoking, where they wouldn't stop them anymore. Now that was a disaster, because what happened was, when I first moved here, I got asked twice.
Smoking of drugs, wasn't it?
Yeah. When I first moved here, I got asked once or twice. They then left me alone because they knew I wasn't interested in buying drugs. Then,
you were approached on the street?
I was approached on the street when I first moved here. Yeah. Then they left you alone because you weren't interested. The minute they did that, every Tom, Dick and Harry from around London who wanted to sell came to Brixton. And for several months it was an absolute nightmare. That now has got a lot better. But I think generally it's an exciting, really exciting place to live, even though I've now moved just down the road to Clapham.
Oh, have you?
Yes. About 4 years ago, I moved to Clapham.
Bought a council place now?
Yes, I bought an ex-local authority flat, not from the council.
No, that's how I started.
But no, we do. You don't get any special, a thing of where you can buy X places. It was somebody who previously been a council tenant.
One of the things I said to you when we've had a chat sometimes is, do people often ask you, "Oh, come on, Christopher, can you get me a flat?"
If I could have £1 for every time I've been asked for a council flat, and it is a difficult issue, because in this country there's still an expectation from some people that the council should provide
give you a place.
But of course, in the 80s, a lot of houses were bought from the council and no money was put in to build new ones. And therefore there just is not the number of properties there for the council to be able to house everybody, especially in somewhere like in London. And
the density is very high here. When you see the blocks of flats, and even sitting here in your wonderful plush, what's it called?
Mayor's Parlour.
Mayor's Parlour. You can see all these flats outside, or there might be offices. I don't know what they are. They look like flats to me. But the other thing people often say in the newspapers, and this is more on a national scale, "Oh, you're the wrong colour. If you're black, you'll get a place straight away. Or if you come straight off a boat, no, you're the wrong colour. You're white. You won't get a place." What would you say to that?
It's typically it's just not true. There's different circumstances of where you can come into the country, and yes, if you come into the country and say you're an asylum seeker and you've got children, then there's a duty of care. And that's overall, that's what it's down. It's the most vulnerable. If we have got a limit to the number of properties, then it's the most vulnerable that need to get them. But I do think that things like housing associations and building on that, and building on where people, when they can start to have a part ownership of it. Because one of the things you find on some estates is that there are some people who are living there because they don't have a kind of, part ownership, then they don't really care for the environment. And what we find is that when you actually have mixed tenure, where you have some people, because not everybody can afford to buy or even needs to buy, but mixing those people with people who actually either part own or fully own their property, then you find that those areas actually are better maintained and better communities.
Interesting. Is there a difference between you being mayor in, say, somewhere like Lambeth, as I say, big flats, high density, as to someone being mayor in somewhere perhaps out in the country, the villages don't have mayors, towns, is it?
You'll have districts that
several villages. Yeah. There must be a huge difference there, surely.
I would have thought so, and the kind of the events that you'd go to. I particularly here, support a lot of youth events. So anywhere, because one of the great things about Lambeth is that they've been putting more and more money into giving young people something to do. The council have been doing that. But also within the community, there's a huge number of people who are extremely dedicated and give up their time to give young people something to do. And, you know, it's not rocket science. You give them something to do and they do
won't get up to trouble. They don't get up to trouble.
And most of the young people that I see are totally different from anything that I see in the newspaper, because what you think is that every single one of them was going to knife you or shoot at you.
That is what people think.
Yeah.
That is what people think.
And one of the things, the other things that we need to do is to get, and I've seen several projects where they get younger people connected with older people. So kind of like there was one project where it was older people talking about the war and sharing those experiences. Now that's great because those stories of course one day are going to be lost, so it's a great way of passing those stories down, but it's also great for the older people to see that younger people aren't all hoodies and aren't all horrible.
It's true. I love it. Now I do, as you know, I do DJing and karaoke. And I love it when a young person comes up and tells me, I'd love to be a DJ. What do I have to do? And I'll ask them why. And if they say for the money or the fame, I say, no, well, you're doing it the wrong way and you won't get anywhere. If it's like, I really like to, I don't know, make people smile or I'm really into music, then I'll give them a leg up. And there's been several people over a long period of time that have actually gone quite far, and it's always a bit upsetting when they go further than me, but a lot of them do, you know. And when I see them do that, do you watch The X Factor?
Yep.
Daniel.
Yes.
Used to come and sing at a karaoke night I did 3 years ago. And when you see the papers ripping him apart, saying what a stuck-up so-and-so he is and all this, that and the other, and then you remember that boy that came down to your pub and sang, and yes, performed exactly on the stage as he is now on The X Factor.
Yeah.
But there was no attitude, there was no nastiness, he wasn't vile, and it's just so full of lies.
It's just kind of knocking for knocking.
It's awful.
But I think one of the things we were talking about earlier about social media, one of the things that we saw with the Daily Mail and that awful Jan Moir, or
what's
whatever
her name?
Moir, whatever it is.
But she still has the job.
But what we did see there is that they can't just get away with it anymore with social media, with Facebook groups, with Twitter, that actually the wider community can come together and say, absolutely, we don't accept what you're saying. But what they also need to do is stop buying
for people outside the UK. What was the story there again?
So that was Stephen Gately.
When Stephen Gately died, this woman, she works for a newspaper, the Daily Mail, and she wrote this article about how he died, and said it was due to his lifestyle, and she wasn't surprised, and she laid into him. Now remember, this guy was now dead.
And his family grieving.
His family grieving, and she went out and wrote that in the paper. Yeah. And it was disgusting.
And I personally just don't think there's such a thing as a good reason to die or a bad reason to die. No. The fact somebody's died, even if they had drunk themselves to death, I'd still be sad that they died. And I really kind of that's something that irritates me over a wide range. You know, even if somebody smoked 30 a day, you wouldn't go and visit the hospital.
Serves him right. He's got cancer. Yeah. Awful. Okay, there's a couple of other questions. Now, you're mixed race.
Yes, indeed.
Did you find that a disadvantage to getting the mayoral job? Was that at all a disadvantage?
Certainly not in Lambeth. Where I've lived elsewhere in the country, I've come across racism. Yeah. In Lambeth, it's not an issue.
Would you not say in London it's not an issue?
Well, if you're talking Zone 5, if you're talking places like, I was in Hillingdon the other day where I grew up, there is still, it's not as mixed. Certainly in inner London, I don't think it's as much of a problem. And of course we have got parts of London where we've got the rise of the BNP. So within some parts,
is that East London?
Some parts over in the east. And interestingly, a lot of the times when they have more of a problem is when there's actually a smaller number of of immigrants
Right.
or people who might be second or third generation. My family are all white because I was adopted within. My grandparents adopted me.
I was as well.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
my grandfather adopted me, so I was born a Wellbelove, and I carried on a Wellbelove.
A well-beloved, or loved.
Well, no D, not loved that much. And people will look in where I grew up, and they go, "Oh." When I'd say this is my sister, and they go,
yes.
You can see their brain clicking
your sister is
along.
black?
White.
Well, okay, your sister's white.
So, and they would notice.
You look white to me.
Well, and that's one of the things about since I've come to Lambeth. Then that's not an issue.
Right.
And I have had who will remain nameless, but somebody say, because we were talking about encouraging more people from ethnic backgrounds to get involved in local politics, and somebody said, "Oh, well, Christopher Wellbelove's mixed race," and they said, "Oh no, he's not black enough," which I share now with Obama, which was interesting for me from growing up in Hillingdon, where I was called every name under the sun, including Packy.
Right.
People would. And I'd be like, "Oh, go back to your own country." It's like, well, I'm here.
It's just an awful thing.
Yeah.
Awful thing.
The worst tale was actually, that was in the Midlands. I've got some family who lives in Burton-on-Trent, and I was in a bar. I must have been about 23, and a little girl.
Long time ago, a
while ago. But I'll never forget it. A little girl must have been about 6 or 7, come up to me and said, "I can't talk to you because you're black."
And that's what her parents had told her.
And obviously, and I just said, "Well, you can half talk to me because I'm half black," because I realised it wasn't her fault.
Of course not.
And also, we use humour to try and... but at the time, it really affected me for, somebody so young to come and say something like that. But it
hasn't held you back in Lambeth. Could you see yourself... you're not a politician, are you?
I'm not really.
Would you like to do that?
You never want to say, "Oh, I'm never going to go for anything else." I love being a local councillor. I love the kind of local connection. When you're an MP, it's a lot more difficult to actually get things done on a local basis, especially if your party's in opposition, because you don't have any power. You can campaign for things, you can go and vote, but if your party's not in power, then your vote's not really going to do anything. I've always had a great interest in Europe.
Right.
And especially if you look for a lot of the rights that we've got, especially as gay people, equalities and things like that, they have come from Europe. So I think if I was to have to go on to do anything else, then it probably would be down a kind of like European route. A lot of people not Europe, but actually if we participate in it, we could use that to our benefit.
And the fact, so you're mixed race, that hasn't stopped you here.
Yeah.
The fact that you're gay, and we've only got a couple of minutes left, how has that been? Have we ever had a gay mayor?
Now, the funny thing was, when I become mayor, it wasn't an issue.
So no one really knew?
Oh no, people know, it's just not an issue. And I'm not the first gay mayor. In Lambeth, we've had several gay mayors. Southwark have just got their first gay mayor. So he was able to get in.
It's like a little club. They're taking over, dear. Taking over.
And our leader of the council, Steve Reed, he's out gay.
Right.
Also drinks in the brewers sometimes.
So that wasn't a problem either.
So it's just not an issue in Lambeth, and that's one of the reasons why I love being and representing Lambeth so much.
You wouldn't like to be the UK's first mixed race gay Prime Minister?
No.
Could you see yourself doing a bit of a Gordon Brown? I mean, admittedly, you're a bit better looking. A bit. No, don't go mad.
Right.
A bit.
It's not.
That's a hard job, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he gets knocked. It doesn't matter what he does now. It's like nothing.
Well, it's interesting when Tony Blair was in, everyone said, "Oh, it's too much spin," and then when Gordon come in, it was like, "Oh, he's not polished enough." So it is quite interesting. And as somebody who's become involved in politics, I very often, when I meet people and they'll ask me something, and I'll say to them, "Do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear?"
Tell them the truth.
And they always say they want the truth. The minute you start telling the truth, they then start having a go at you and say, "Look, I could have told you just what you want to hear."
Christopher Wellbelove, It's been wonderful to talk to you. Really great little chat there for you. Now, don't forget, you can email the show. It's chris@unitedkingdomtalk.co.uk. Christopher Wellbelove.
And they can find me on twitter.com/Mayor of Lambeth.
Become another follower. He needs 801. From myself, Chris Reardon, thanks for watching and listening. And from Christopher Wellbelove, bye-bye now.